Most of us think love starts with attraction, that initial spark, right? But what if I told you that, according to psychology, that's not it at all? We're about to break down a process that's much quieter, way more predictable, and honestly, a lot more powerful. And it totally seems logical, doesn't it? You see someone, you feel that little jolt of chemistry, and boom, that's the beginning. But the actual patterns of how we connect as humans, well, they tell a completely different story. The heart might be the symbol we use, but the journey to love, it actually starts in the mind. So here's the real secret. Love actually begins the very moment someone feels emotionally safe with you. Just think about that. It's a feeling that's so incredibly rare, mainly because almost nobody is ever taught how to consciously create it for someone else. Okay, I get it. Hearing that love has a structure can feel a little unromantic, a little clinical, like we're trying to take the magic out of it. But this isn't about tricks or some cheap formula. Psychology is just good at revealing patterns, these quiet, predictable conditions that just happen to show up every single time people genuinely fall in love. And it turns out there are 4 distinct psychological steps that create these conditions. You can almost think of them as a roadmap to a real, genuine connection. So let's walk through the very first one. All right, step 1 is all about turning conversation into discovery, because the very first signal of love isn't that physical attraction, it's curiosity. And it's this unique kind of curiosity where someone doesn't just enjoy talking to you, they start to feel drawn to explore themselves in your presence. So this means you've got to move past all the surface level stuff. It's the difference between asking, "What do you do?" and asking something that actually makes them pause, like, "What made you choose that path?" You see, you're not just getting facts, you're inviting them to reflect. Or, instead of a huge, simple question like, "Are you happy?" you could ask, "When do you feel most like yourself?" The key is that these questions never feel invasive. They feel like invitations. Invitations to just drop the mask for a second and reveal the real person underneath. And then something really amazing happens. They realize they're opening up almost effortlessly, thinking more deeply, and feeling this incredible sense of being understood. And that feeling of being seen without feeling exposed, that's the quiet little moment where love really starts to take root. But that feeling of being seen, well, it can turn into fear pretty fast. Which brings us right to step 2, removing the fear of judgment. Because this right here is the exact point where most potential connections just completely fall apart. People fall in love with those who make them feel emotionally safe. And this is so important. It doesn't mean you agree with everything they say. It means you respond without panic. You don't rush in to correct them. You don't shame them for contradicting themselves. And you don't shrink away when the conversation gets a little uncomfortable. Your reaction sends one powerful, unspoken message. There's room for all of that here. And suddenly, they can admit they're confused or insecure or that they've made mistakes, and the connection doesn't break. Love thrives in places where we can finally stop performing. And that leads us perfectly into step 3, offering kind interpretations. We all have that harsh inner critic, right? That voice in our head that's always telling us we're too slow or inconsistent or just plain imperfect. And that is precisely why genuine kindness from someone else can feel so revolutionary. Now, we're not talking about just surface level niceness here. This is about how you interpret their behavior. So when they mess up, the default reaction for most people is, "Ugh, what's wrong with them?" But a kind interpretation thinks, "Wow, this must be hard for them." It's about seeing the effort behind the outcome and the context behind the mistake. Over time, when you do this, you create something incredibly rare, an emotional shelter. It's this space where a person doesn't feel like they're being constantly evaluated, but just understood. And that feeling of safety, it becomes absolutely addictive. And that brings us to our final and maybe the most overlooked step of all. Be coherent, not impressive. Because love doesn't grow from some flawless performance. It grows from something so much more real than that. So what is emotional coherence? It's simply this. It's when who you say you are matches how you actually behave. It's when your strengths don't feel like they're trying to hide your limits. It's when there's no big performance that you have to constantly maintain. You're just you. This kind of clarity is what builds trust. And it's that deep trust that allows a real attachment to form. People don't fall in love with flawless individuals. They fall in love with people who feel real, who feel stable and consistent. So let's put all of this together.
We often get caught up in this checklist for our ideal partner, right? They need to be attractive, confident, successful, and hey, those qualities might spark some interest, they might catch our eye, but they don't create love. They don't build the real foundation.
True, lasting love forms when someone feels four key things in your presence: deeply understood, safe from judgment, treated with kindness, and grounded in something real. So if you remember nothing else from this, please remember this. Love doesn't really start with chemistry. It starts the moment someone's nervous system can finally, truly relax around you. So let me ask you, do you feel recognized by this? If these ideas are resonating with you, it's probably because this isn't just about advice for finding a partner. It's really about understanding yourself more clearly. It's about becoming the kind of person who creates that safety for the people in your life. Thanks for exploring this with me.